The jungle on planet Rovinine was not like anything humans had ever seen. The trees were tall, with glowing vines hanging like long curtains. Strange birds with crystal feathers flew in the purple sky, and the air was thick with the scent of flowers and minerals. But no one from the expedition team came here to enjoy the beauty. They were here for the rare stone buried deep under the ruins in the center of the jungle. A small team of human explorers, dressed in protective suits, slowly made their way toward the heart of the jungle. Their scanners beeped softly, tracking energy signatures from the ancient ruins ahead. The air grew hotter as they moved forward. Sweat rolled down their necks, but no one complained. Then, without warning, a loud hiss tore through the silence. "Watch out!" someone shouted. From the shadows, a massive creature jumped. It was fast, too fast. Part snake, part insect, it had long fangs, black shiny scales, and eyes that glowed red. Its body moved like liquid, slithering and crawling at the same time. One of the explorers fired a stun weapon, but it bounced off the creature's thick skin. Another tried to run, but the creature blocked his path with a loud, angry growl. It didn't attack yet. It was warning them. "Fall back," the team leader ordered. They all ran back to the clearing behind them. The creature didn't follow far. It stopped and coiled near a stone pillar covered in ancient carvings. And beside it stood a woman. She wasn't human. She had soft blue skin with hints of violet in the light. Her hair was silver and reached her shoulders. She wore a long, dark robe made from a material the humans had never seen before. Her face was calm. Her eyes were bright gold and focused directly on the humans, but she didn't speak a word. The creature moved close to her, protectively, and hissed again. One look told everyone. It would kill if they came closer. The team members stared at the strange pair. Who was she? Why was she here? And more importantly, what was that beast? "She must be guarding the ruins," one explorer whispered. "Maybe she's part of a lost tribe." Another guessed. "No," the team leader replied. "There are no known intelligent species left on this planet. The records say it was abandoned after the collapse of the ancient empire. But there she was, alive, standing silently with a venomous creature by her side. For 2 hours, the humans tried to contact her. They spoke in different languages, held up signs, and even showed peaceful gestures. But every time someone moved too close, the creature growled and hissed louder. It once struck a metal drone out of the air like it was a fly. The message was clear: do not approach. The team set up camp a safe distance away. Tension was high. The creature kept watching them. So did the woman. She hadn't moved at all since their arrival. She was like a statue, calm, but alert. Among the team was a quiet man named Callan. He wasn't the strongest or loudest, but he noticed small things. He had always been better at listening than talking. While others argued about what to do, Callan sat by the edge of the camp and watched. He noticed how the creature's tail twitched when loud noises were made. He saw how it circled the woman 3 times before resting. He realized it didn't act like a wild animal. It acted like a trained guardian. And yet, it wasn't obeying commands. It seemed connected to the woman in a deeper way. That night, as the others slept under the stars of Rovinine, Callan stayed awake. He kept his eyes on the woman and her beast. At one point, she turned her head, just slightly, and looked at him directly. Not at the others, just him. Callan didn't look away. He simply nodded once, slowly, like a greeting. She didn't respond, but she didn't turn away either. The next morning, one explorer got impatient. He walked forward with a scanner in his hand, trying to measure the creature's energy. Before he could take more than 5 steps, the beast launched forward with a roar. The man screamed and fell back, dropping his gear as he scrambled for safety. The creature didn't chase him. It stopped where the woman stood, once again protecting her. Everyone backed off. Everyone, except Callan. He stepped forward, just a little, and sat on a fallen tree trunk. Not too close, not too far. He said nothing. He just sat there, calm and quiet. The creature hissed once, then stayed still. From the camp, the others stared at him in shock. Why wasn't it attacking him? The woman looked at Callan again. This time, her expression had changed. It was no longer cold or blank. It was curious. Callan stayed seated on the fallen tree for hours. He didn't speak, didn't move too much, and didn't try to take out any device. He just sat quietly and observed. The alien woman didn't move either. Her glowing eyes stayed on him, watching closely, as if trying to understand his reason for being there. The venomous creature remained close to her, wrapped around the base of the ancient pillar like a living shield. Its long, sharp tail curled tightly, and it made a low hissing sound every time someone from the human camp moved or talked too loudly. Everyone else in the group kept their distance. Some were nervous, others were frustrated. "This is a waste of time," one explorer said, crossing his arms. "She's not going to talk. That creature is too dangerous." "We should contact command," another added. "Let them send drones or weapons." But the team leader shook her head. "That could make things worse. We don't know who she is or what that thing is capable of. If it's guarding the ruins, attacking could destroy everything we came to study." Meanwhile, Callan just listened. Later that afternoon, he returned to camp for water and food. He didn't say anything to the others. Then he went back to the same spot and sat down again. This time, he brought something with him, a small round fruit from their supplies. It was smooth and red, and it gave off a sweet smell. He didn't toss it or offer it directly. He placed it slowly on the ground in front of him and gently rolled it a few feet forward. Then he leaned back and waited. The alien woman looked down at the fruit. She didn't pick it up, but she didn't ignore it either. Her eyes flicked between Callan and the fruit, as if she was thinking about what it meant. Her creature, however, sniffed the air. It slowly uncoiled and crept forward. Its body moved like liquid shadow, fast but quiet. It stopped a few feet away from the fruit. The humans back at the camp froze, holding their breath. One wrong move, and Callan would be in serious danger. But he stayed calm. The creature opened its mouth slightly. Two thin tongues flicked out, tasting the air. Then, slowly, it used its sharp claw to pull the fruit toward itself. It sniffed it again, hissed softly, and brought the fruit back to its place near the woman. It didn't eat it. It just left it there. And then, for the first time, the woman spoke. Her voice was soft but clear. Her language wasn't one the humans knew. It sounded musical, like a song mixed with whispers. She said only a few words. Then she placed her hand gently on the creature's head. It calmed instantly. Callan didn't understand the words, but he nodded slowly, showing respect. He didn't try to speak back. He just placed his hand on his own chest, over his heart, and bowed his head a little. The woman tilted her head. Her golden eyes watched him closely. That night, something strange happened. Callan had returned to the camp, but before sleeping, he felt a strange feeling in his chest, like he was being watched. When he looked out toward the jungle, he saw glowing golden eyes in the darkness. She was watching from the trees, not hiding, not threatening, just watching. The next morning, Callan went to his usual sitting place again. This time, he brought two fruits. He placed one in front of him. Then, carefully, he pushed the second one even closer than before, just a few steps away from the creature's space. The alien woman stood again. She stepped forward slowly. The venomous pet stayed behind, but didn't stop her. She bent down, picked up the fruit Callan offered, and held it in her palm. She stared at it for a long time, and then looked straight into Callan's eyes. She spoke again, still in her own language. But this time, she added a hand gesture, pointing to the fruit, then to Callan, then to herself. Callan smiled a little. He mimicked her gesture. She nodded slowly, just once. It was a beginning. Back at the camp, the others were confused, and maybe even a bit jealous. How is he doing this? Someone asked. He hasn't even said a word to her. He's not trying to control her, the team leader said. That might be the key. Callan didn't know what the next steps would be. He still didn't understand her language. He didn't know the creature's limits, but he could feel something shifting. The woman no longer looked at him as a stranger, and the creature no longer hissed when he came near. For the next few days, Callan kept his distance from the others. While they focused on their mission to retrieve the rare minerals, Callan spent most of his time near the alien woman and her venom. It was curious. Callan stayed seated on the fallen tree for hours. He didn't speak, didn't move too much, and didn't try to take out any device. He just sat quietly and observed. The alien woman didn't move either. Her glowing eyes stayed on him, watching closely, as if trying to understand his reason for being there. The venomous creature remained close to her, wrapped around the base of the ancient pillar like a living shield. Its long, sharp tail curled tightly, and it made a low hissing sound every time someone from the human camp moved or talked too loudly. Everyone else in the group kept their distance. Some were nervous, others were frustrated. "This is a waste of time," one explorer said, crossing his arms. "She's not going to talk. That creature is too dangerous." "We should contact command," another added. "Let them send drones or weapons." But the team leader shook her head. "That could make things worse. We don't know who she is or what that thing is capable of. If it's guarding the ruins, attacking could destroy everything we came to study." Meanwhile, Callan just listened. Later that afternoon, he returned to camp for water and food. He didn't say anything to the others. Then he went back to the same spot and sat down again. This time, he brought something with him, a small round fruit from their supplies. It was smooth and red, and it gave off a sweet smell. He didn't toss it or offer it directly. He placed it slowly on the ground in front of him and gently rolled it a few feet forward. Then he leaned back and waited. The alien woman looked down at the fruit. She didn't pick it up, but she didn't ignore it either. Her eyes flicked between Callan and the fruit, as if she was thinking about what it meant. Her creature, however, sniffed the air. It slowly uncoiled and crept forward. Its body moved like liquid shadow, fast, but quiet. It stopped a few feet away from the fruit. The humans back at the camp froze, holding their breath. One wrong move, and Callan would be in serious danger. But he stayed calm. The creature opened its mouth slightly. Two thin tongues flicked out, tasting the air. Then, slowly, it used its sharp claw to pull the fruit toward itself. It sniffed it again, hissed softly, and brought the fruit back to its place near the woman. It didn't eat it. It just left it there. And then, for the first time, the woman spoke. Her voice was soft but clear. Her language wasn't one the humans knew. It sounded musical, like a song mixed with whispers. She said only a few words. Then she placed her hand gently on the creature's head. It calmed instantly. Callan didn't understand the words, but he nodded slowly, showing respect. He didn't try to speak back. He just placed his hand on his own chest, over his heart, and bowed his head a little. The woman tilted her head. Her golden eyes watched him closely. That night, something strange happened. Callan had returned to the camp, but before sleeping, he felt a strange feeling in his chest, like he was being washed. When he looked out toward the jungle, he saw glowing golden eyes in the darkness. She was watching from the trees. Not hiding, not threatening, just watching. The next morning, Callan went to his usual sitting place again. This time, he brought two fruits. He placed one in front of him. Then, carefully, he pushed the second one even closer than before, just a few steps away from the creature's space. The alien woman stood again. She stepped forward slowly. The venomous pet stayed behind, but didn't stop her. She bent down, picked up the fruit Callan offered, and held it in her palm. She stared at it for a long time, and then looked straight into Callan's eyes. She spoke again, still in her own language, but this time she added a hand gesture. pointing to the fruit, then to Callan, then to herself. Callan smiled a little. He mimicked her gesture. She nodded slowly, just once. It was a beginning. Back at the camp, the others were confused, and maybe even a bit jealous. "How is he doing this?" someone asked. "He hasn't even said a word to her." "He's not trying to control her," the team leader said. "That might be the key." Callan didn't know what the next steps would be. He still didn't understand her language. He didn't know the creature's limits, but he could feel something shifting. The woman no longer looked at him as a stranger, and the creature no longer hissed when he came near. For the next few days, Callan kept his distance from the others. While they focused on their mission to retrieve the rare minerals, Callan spent most of his time near the alien woman and her venom as pet. His interactions with them were simple. He sat, he watched, and he tried to understand. To his surprise, the creature no longer attacked. It no longer hissed when he approached. It simply watched him, its red eyes glowing softly in the dim light of the jungle. And the woman, who had once been a silent figure, seemed to understand his presence. One morning, the team leader called for a meeting. "Callan," she began, "we need to decide what to do. We've got limited time, and the scans show we're close to the source of the energy. But that creature won't let us get close." Callan nodded, but his eyes kept flicking toward the alien woman and her beast. He hadn't spoken much to the team, but something about the way the woman and the creature acted around him made him feel like he had a unique connection. "You've been sitting with them every day. Have you learned anything useful?" the team leader asked. Callan thought for a moment. "They're not as hostile as we thought," he said quietly. "The creature is protective, but it listens to her. If we can get close to her, we might be able to convince it to let us pass." The team exchanged looks of uncertainty. "Convince it?" someone asked. "How do you plan to do that?" "I'm not sure," Callan admitted, "but I think we need to show respect. No weapons, no force, just patience." The others looked doubtful, but the team leader nodded. "All right, we'll give it a try. But if things go wrong, we fall back immediately." For the first time, the team made their way to the ruins, following Callan's lead. They approached cautiously, keeping a safe distance from the creature. As they walked, Callan noticed the woman watching them carefully. Her golden eyes followed their every move. He stepped forward, moving closer to the alien woman. The creature watched him, its tail swaying back and forth. The woman didn't stop him. She didn't move, but her gaze never left him. "Hello," Callan said softly, keeping his voice steady. He knew she wouldn't understand his words, but he wanted to make the effort. The creature's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Callan thought it might attack. But instead, it simply moved aside, making way for him to pass. He glanced at the alien woman, who nodded slightly. She had given him permission. Taking a deep breath, Callan stepped forward. The others were watching from a distance, their hearts racing. Callan had done it. He had gotten past the creature without a fight. But the true test had only just begun. Would the woman let them access the ruins? Slowly, Callan reached the center of the ancient site. He stood still, watching the carvings on the walls. There were symbols he didn't recognize, markings that told stories of a forgotten time. His fingers traced the stone, feeling the rough surface. He glanced back at the woman. She hadn't moved from her spot, but the venomous creature was no longer blocking his path. It was sitting by her side, its eyes still fixed on him. Callan's eyes softened. "Thank you," he whispered, not sure if she could hear him. The woman didn't speak, but her eyes seemed to acknowledge his gratitude. She tilted her head slightly, almost like she was considering something. Then, in a soft voice, she spoke, words Callan couldn't understand. It wasn't the same as before. This time, there was a sense of familiarity in her tone, a deeper connection. Callan hesitated but then replied in the same soft tone. "I don't know what you're saying, but I'm listening." The woman's gaze shifted, and she turned to face the creature. The venomous pet stood up, its eyes still fixed on Callan, but it made no move to attack. The woman took a step forward, then another. Her movements were slow, deliberate. She wasn't afraid of him. She reached out, placing her hand on the stone wall beside Callan's. The creature followed her, standing just behind her, watching intently. Callan felt the air around them shift, a strange energy filling the space. He didn't know what it was, but it felt powerful, like the woman was giving him a gift of understanding. Then, without a word, the woman turned and walked toward the entrance to the ruins. The creature stayed close behind her, but it didn't block the humans. It simply watched. Callan hesitated for a moment, then followed her. The others slowly began to follow as well, their fear slowly turning into curiosity. They were inside the ruins now, standing in a place that had been hidden for centuries. The walls were covered in intricate designs, and there were signs of an advanced civilization that had long since vanished. The atmosphere was heavy with history. Callan felt the weight of it all. The alien woman had trusted him enough to allow them in. He didn't know what would happen next, but he was ready to face whatever came their way. The creature watched silently from the entrance, its glowing eyes shining through the shadows. The woman, however, was no longer a mystery. She had shown them trust. And now, they had to prove they were worthy of it. The ruins were quiet. The only sounds were the soft rustling of the jungle outside and the steady footsteps of the explorers as they moved deeper into the ancient structure. Callan walked at the front, the alien woman just a few steps ahead of him. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful, as she led the way. The venomous pet trailed behind her, keeping a close watch on the humans. Its glowing red eyes never left them, but it no longer looked ready to strike. Instead, it seemed to follow its master's lead, watching cautiously, but not acting aggressively. It was as if the creature understood that these humans were different from the others it had encountered. The walls of the ruins were covered in strange symbols, symbols that Callan had never seen before. The carvings seemed to tell stories of a once great civilization, long since lost. There were images of people and creatures, some familiar, others completely alien. Some were peaceful, while others were filled with conflict. Callan ran his fingers over the stone, feeling the cool texture beneath his touch. The symbols seemed to pulse with energy, like they were alive in some way. He wondered what secrets they held. The alien woman stopped in front of a large stone door, her hand hovering just inches above it. She glanced back at Callan, her golden eyes meeting his. For a moment, the two of them simply stood there, looking at each other in silence. There was no need for words between them. It was as if they understood each other perfectly without speaking. Callan took a step closer, his heart racing. He didn't know what the woman was thinking, but he felt a deep sense of trust in her presence. She had allowed them into this sacred place, and now it was up to them to uncover its mysteries. "Is it safe?" one of the other explorers asked quietly, breaking the silence. Callan glanced over his shoulder. The team was still standing near the entrance, watching carefully. They had followed him, but they seemed unsure about stepping further into the ruins. The venomous pet was still watching them from the shadows, its eyes gleaming. "It's safe," Callan said, his voice calm. He wasn't sure what would happen next, but he felt a strange sense of peace in the woman's presence. "She's letting us in. Trust her." The woman didn't react to the words, but her eyes softened as she turned back to the stone door. She placed her hand gently on it, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep rumble, the door began to shift. It slowly opened, revealing a dark corridor beyond. Callan's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the heart of the ruins, the place they had been searching for. And yet there was still so much they didn't understand. The woman stepped inside, the venomous pet following closely behind her. Callan hesitated for a moment, then motioned for the others to follow. They walked down the corridor, their footsteps echoing off the stone walls. The air was thick with the scent of dust and age. It felt like stepping into another world, a place that had been forgotten by time. As they moved deeper, the walls began to change. The symbols became more intricate, and strange patterns started to appear. The air seemed to hum with energy, as if the very stone itself was alive. The alien woman stopped in front of a large stone tablet that stood in the center of the room. Her eyes locked onto it, and she raised her hand once again, this time with a slow, deliberate motion. The creature by her side remained still, its eyes watching, its body tense. Callan stepped forward, feeling a pull toward the tablet. There was something about it, something that felt familiar. As he approached, he noticed the markings on it were different from the ones on the walls. They were more complex, more refined, as if this was the key to understanding everything. The woman spoke again, her voice soft and melodic. It was the same language, but this time, Callan felt like he understood it more. He didn't know how, but the words seemed to resonate within him. The woman's voice wasn't just speaking to his ears, it was speaking to his very soul. He stepped closer to the tablet and reached out, his fingers grazing the surface. A shock of energy ran through him, but it wasn't painful. It was like a connection, a bridge between two worlds. The tablet responded, the symbols glowing softly in the dim light. Slowly, the surface of the stone began to shift, and a new image appeared. An image of a ship, a massive craft with glowing engines soaring through the stars. Callan's eyes widened. This was it. The ship. The key to everything. The woman turned to him, her golden eyes filled with an unreadable emotion. She said something, but this time, Callan didn't need to understand the words. He could feel the meaning in the air. She was telling him the story of her people, of their past, their fall, and their hopes for the future. He nodded, understanding more than he could explain. The alien woman wasn't just a guardian. She was a survivor. She had lived through the downfall of her civilization, and now she was the last one left to protect its legacy. The creature by her side shifted, its sharp eyes now soft. It no longer looked like a deadly threat. It looked like a protector, a guardian, just like the woman. The team stood in awe, unsure of what to say or do. They had come here looking for answers, but now they were part of a story far bigger than they could have imagined. Callan took a deep breath. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, he felt ready to face whatever came next. The scene before them felt like something out of a dream. Callan stood by the stone tablet, his fingers still resting on its surface, as the symbols glowed softly in the air. The alien woman's gaze was fixed on him, her golden eyes filled with an emotion that was hard to place. The venomous creature stood quietly behind her, its sharp, dangerous form no longer a threat. For the first time since they had arrived, the creature seemed calm. It wasn't watching with suspicion or aggression. It was watching with curiosity, as if it too was trying to understand the new bond that had been formed. Callan, the team leader's voice broke through the silence. What is happening? Callan slowly pulled his hand away from the glowing tablet and turned to face the others. His mind was racing, but he tried to steady himself. The answers they were all looking for were just ahead, but there was so much to take in. The strange symbols on the tablet, the woman's language, the way everything seemed connected in ways that didn't make sense yet. I don't fully understand it, Callan said, his voice low and steady. But I think we've unlocked something. This tablet is showing us something important. It's a record of their people, their history. The rest of the team moved closer. Their curiosity piqued, but they didn't approach the woman or the creature. They seemed to understand that the moment of tension had passed. The venomous pet was no longer a threat. It was standing, observing, its sharp claws resting on the stone floor. The woman, too, had relaxed. Her posture was more open now, less guarded. As the others looked at the glowing symbols, they could see that they formed an image of a great ship, soaring through space, accompanied by alien creatures and people. The ship had an unmistakable design, with wings that stretched out like the shape of a bird in flight. Is that a ship? one of the explorers asked, squinting at the intricate details. Yes, Callan replied, his eyes still locked on the tablet. That's a ship, and it's showing us how their civilization traveled between stars. The alien woman stepped closer to the tablet, her hand hovering just above it. She spoke again, her voice softer than before, like a whisper carried by the wind. Callan could feel the weight of her words, even though he couldn't understand them. But he felt something stir within him, something deep. There was a connection here between him, the woman, and this place, and for the first time, he felt like he could reach across the divide that separated them, even without understanding her language completely. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. I don't understand everything you're saying, he began quietly, but I want to help. I want to understand. The woman's eyes softened at his words. She didn't speak again, but the way she looked at him told him that she had heard him. She nodded once, slowly, and for the first time, she turned toward the venomous pet, as if to give it some command. The creature didn't move at first. It stood still, watching them all carefully. But then, to everyone's surprise, it slowly shifted its weight and stepped aside. It was a small movement, but it was enough. It was giving them space to move forward, to explore more of the ruins. The team exchanged looks of disbelief. They had expected to face more resistance, more danger, but now, it was like the path had been cleared. Callan stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. The woman remained still, her golden eyes following his every movement. The venomous creature stood by her side, but it no longer seemed like a threat. It was guarding, not attacking. As Callan reached the next section of the ruins, another set of symbols began to appear, etched into the walls. This set was different from the ones on the tablet, more detailed, more precise. The carvings told a story, one of loss and struggle. It depicted a once great civilization, a people who had lived in peace with the stars, traveling from planet to planet, building a legacy. But then the symbols changed. There was an image of destruction, of a great battle that tore their society apart, a fierce conflict. And then the image of the alien woman appeared, standing alone, with the venomous creature at her side, the last survivor of her people. Callan's throat tightened as he stared at the image. The woman, this alien he had met, was the last of her kind. She had survived the destruction of her civilization, left to guard its history in these ancient ruins. This is why you're here, Callan whispered, more to himself than anyone else. You're not just protecting the ruins. You're protecting the memory of your people. The alien woman's gaze softened, as if she understood his words. She walked over to him, her steps slow and purposeful. The venomous pet followed her, its eyes never leaving Callan's form. She reached out and touched the symbols on the wall, her hand tracing the images of her people. She looked back at Callan, her golden eyes filled with a quiet sadness. There was so much she wanted to say, but the words were lost in a language that Callan could only feel. He reached out and placed his hand gently on the wall, his fingers brushing against the carvings. The energy in the air seemed to grow stronger, more alive. The connection between them felt deeper than ever. We'll make sure your people's story isn't forgotten, Callan promised, his voice filled with determination. The alien woman's eyes seemed to shine brighter, and for a moment, Callan thought he saw a flicker of hope in her gaze. The ruins seemed to come alive as the team moved deeper into the heart of the structure. Callan's mind raced with the new information they had uncovered. The alien woman, this last survivor of an ancient civilization, had shown them the way into a story lost to time. The symbols on the walls, the images of her people, the strange energy that connected them all. It was as though the past itself was speaking to him. He couldn't help but feel a deep sense of responsibility. The woman had entrusted them with a secret, a piece of her history, and now it was up to them to honor it. The team walked quietly, their footsteps echoing softly through the stone hallways. The venomous creature remained close to the alien woman, moving silently like a shadow. It no longer looked like a threat. It was more like a loyal companion, guarding the only surviving member of a once great people. Callan turned to the others. "We're not just here for minerals anymore," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "We're here to help her, to help them." The team leader nodded. "We're all in this together. But how do we help? What's next?" Callan thought for a moment, his gaze drifting back to the alien woman. She had been silent since they entered the ruins, her eyes fixed on the carvings, tracing the images with her fingertips. The creature stood beside her, its eyes glowing softly in the dim light. He walked over to her, careful not to make any sudden movements. The others followed at a distance, giving them space. He didn't know why, but he felt drawn to her, as though he was meant to be here with her, understanding her history, and maybe even her pain. When he was close enough, the alien woman turned her head and met his gaze. There was something about her eyes, something ancient, yet full of life. She didn't need to say anything. The connection between them was unspoken, deep. Callan took a deep breath and spoke softly. "I want to understand more. Your people's history, their legacy." The woman's eyes softened. She nodded slowly and stepped toward a large stone tablet in the center of the room. This one was different from the others. It had no symbols, no carvings. It was smooth, but there was a strange, faint glow surrounding it. Callan approached, his curiosity piqued. The woman stood beside him, her hand hovering over the stone surface. She spoke a few quiet words, her voice barely a whisper. It was the same language she had used before, but this time, Callan understood a little more. He could feel the weight of her words, like they were meant for him alone. The air around them seemed to shift, a gentle hum filling the space. The stone tablet began to change. Slowly, symbols appeared, glowing softly, one after another. They were not like the others on the walls. These symbols were different, new, and as they appeared, they formed a map, a path leading to something far beyond the ruins. This was more than just an artifact. This was the key. The venomous pet, which had stayed by the woman's side the entire time, shifted its weight. It let out a low growl, but this time it wasn't in warning. It was a sound of recognition, like it understood that something important was about to happen. The creature's eyes never left the woman as she reached up and traced the final symbol on the pillar. Then, the ground beneath them began to rumble. The team stepped back, their hands instinctively reaching for their equipment. But the alien woman didn't flinch. She kept her hand pressed firmly on the stone, her gaze unwavering. The pillar began to shift, slowly, as if the stone itself was waking from a long slumber. It rotated, revealing the hidden chamber within. A low hum filled the air, and the faint glow from the pillars seemed to spread throughout the room, illuminating the symbols on the walls and the floor. It was as if the chamber had been designed to respond to this moment, to reveal something that had been waiting for them all along. Callan felt a sense of awe wash over him. It was as if the very history of the alien woman's people was unfolding before his eyes. The woman stepped forward into the newly revealed chamber, the venomous pet following her closely. Callan and the others hesitated for only a moment before following her into the space beyond. Inside, the chamber was filled with ancient technology, control panels covered in dust and worn from centuries of neglect. But they still radiated with power. At the center of the room was a large platform, circular in shape, surrounded by intricate carvings and glowing symbols. Callan stepped closer, his heart pounding. This was it. This was what they had been searching for, the heart of the ruins. But what was it? What had been hidden here for so long? The alien woman walked to the center of the platform. She raised her hand once more, and the glowing symbols around her began to shift. They formed a new pattern, one that Callan hadn't seen before. It was as if the symbols were not just images. They were alive, moving in a way that suggested something far more complex. For the first time, the alien woman spoke to Callan, her voice soft yet clear. "This is the legacy of my people," she said, her words carrying a weight that seemed to echo in the very air. "Our story, our knowledge, the knowledge of the stars." Callan listened intently, not fully understanding the language but feeling the meaning behind it. The energy in the room was growing stronger, and he could sense that the time for answers was finally here. The venomous pet let out a low hum, almost like a vibration, and the platform beneath the woman began to glow brighter. The symbols around them started to pulse, one after another, as if they were unlocking something. The walls of the chamber seemed to come alive with energy, lighting up with the same symbols, the same patterns. Callan stepped closer, his fingers itching to touch the platform. He wasn't sure why, but he felt a connection to it, to this place, to her people. The alien woman turned to him, her golden eyes locking onto his. "You were always meant to find us," she said, her voice filled with a deep sadness. "The humans, you are the ones who will carry our story forward. You will be the bridge." Callan didn't know what that meant, but as he looked at her, he felt a deep sense of understanding. This was more than just discovery. This was about connecting the past to the future. It was about carrying the legacy of an entire civilization. The platform began to hum, its glow intensifying. A soft light filled the room, and for a moment, Callan felt as though he was surrounded by the essence of everything that had come before, everything that had been lost. And in that moment, he knew one thing for certain. They had found something far more valuable than minerals. They had found a story that would live on for generations to come.